Hey, it's Conrad, the mortgage guy, and we are live at somethingtowrestle.com. And of course, we couldn't do it without the host with the most, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Layfield. John, how are you, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Conrad, the mortgage guy. It's actually added a little bit to your moniker. I like that.
Well, yeah, how about that? We're actually doing it from the mortgage office today. So greatly appreciate everybody tuning in with us today. And boy, do we have a lot of news to talk about. We are going to talk about the shooters and the tough guys of professional wrestling. But before we do, there's so much news. So much has happened. But I don't know if you saw, but, well, your whereabouts leaked this weekend. Did you see the internet had a field day seeing you come out of some New York City building somewhere in the vicinity of Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard and Jerry Briscoe. And my notifications blew up and people wanted to know, what does it mean? And I was like, boy, if they just had Google where they live, they'd figure out maybe what was going on. But then Mike Johnson from PW Insider broke the news. Vince McMahon apparently had a big 80th birthday bash, and allegedly Kid Rock and AC/DC were there. This sounds like one hell of a party, John. Tell us about it.
Well, I can tell you that Mike Johnson may have broke the news. From that statement, I pick a few things that were wrong, but I'm not going to tell you what they were because, look, I was up in New York, and obviously I was walking out of a hotel with Bruce Pritchard and Gerald Briscoe, and Vince McMahon was in the vicinity. And from what I hear, there was an 80th birthday party, but no one has stooged any of this to the internet as far as anything that went on or whatever happened, if there was indeed an 80th birthday party. So I'm not going to be the first to be the stooge. So I can tell you that it was his birthday this past weekend. I think it was Sunday, actually, was his birthday.
Yesterday, as we're recording, I think, was the big 8-0. How about
8-0?
that?
Unbelievable. Unreal. I remember one time we were on the plane and he and Kevin were talking. We're just going to outlive them all. And I thought they were joking until now they're just outliving them all. So maybe that is working.
Hey, and I think I have this right. Didn't Vince's mom live to be more than 100 years old? Isn't that right?
Yes. Played tennis regularly. She was from Houston, lived in Houston. And I know she's from Houston, but she lived in Houston. Every time we go down there, Vince would, go see her and take care of her. He's like, he was so good to his mother. Yes, I believe lived to be over 100. So Vince may have 20 more years. I hope he does. You want certain people, it's like Steve Jobs. Yes. You wish he had lived to be 1,000. He was in creating stuff. You hope Elon Musk lives to be freaking 1,000 years old because those guys are changing the world. Vince McMahon is one of these guys that does so much stuff that, he bought his company from his dad for $1 million in 81. I think somebody said he was worth somewhere between $5 and $7 billion now. I mean, you want a guy like that to live to be 150 just to see what he does.
Yes, Brian, we are live right now at somethingtowrestle.com. And if you've got a question for JBL, we'd love to hear it, but he might not be answering too many more questions about the alleged birthday party. I do want to mention the report from Mike Johnson says we're told the security for the event was very tight and that most in attendance at the event did not stop for photos or autograph when spotted entering and exiting the venue. How did you pull this off without all the fanfare? I'm not saying you were the party planner, but didn't you just kind of assume, wouldn't you? I would assume with that level of celebrity coming and going, there's going to be some paparazzi. I guess people really can keep secrets in wrestling, right?
Yeah, and you would think that if there was a birthday party, that Vince probably invited people that were close to him, and I would imagine nobody that was close to him is a stooge. So you don't have people there that are actually just like on their phone, tweeting out, texting out, or whatever they're doing. What's going on? So if this event actually happened, I would imagine that the people there were not people that would report stuff to the internet. Probably none of them.
Well, Mike Johnson says, we're told there was another musician, but have not confirmed who was there yet. Can you give us a hint? Was there a live musical performance? That's not stooging it off, is it?
Well, I left, and I was down in Texas on Saturday. So if I was in New York, I was there just on Friday. So I was down in Texas on Saturday for 360 Pro with Ron Simmons, and ended up clotheslining a referee that had cancer. And so it's true. That's true story, actually. I did.
Did you finish him off? Is that what
No,
happened?
no, I think he's still – I don't think so. He was bigger than a leprechaun, so I didn't hit him with a trash can, but not a lot bigger.
Hey, let me ask, do you think that's the new move? Like you could be the Dr. Kevorkian of wrestling, a literal clothesline from hell? I mean, that could – or clothesline to hell, maybe.
That's right. Yes, I think that would be terrific. Euthanasia is catching on now with people in Sweden and different places. So, yeah, I could just come in and clothesline like old grandmothers and things and just like put them out, put them away.
Well, Let's keep that in mind for a future sponsorship opportunity. Patrick is with us here live, and he says, "How's Bruce doing? We want him back, and for you to have your own job with Conrad. Love you as a replacement, but love Bruce too." That is the number one question we get, and you've seen him since Silva and I have.
Yep.
On how is Bruce?
Bruce looks good. He was wearing an orange shirt. I said that's what Linus was looking for, was a great pumpkin, and he's it. He was looked like a 5-ball on the pool table. But no, he's lost weight. He looks good. I can't make big jokes anymore for him anymore. He's lost weight and he looks really good. And he was very, very happy. He and his lovely wife were there, and we're if I did in fact see him this weekend allegedly. And Bruce looks good and acts like he feels good. He's lost weight. He looks terrific and got a ton of energy. And I love Bruce. And from what I hear, he may be coming back relatively soon. I don't know that for sure, but you would probably know that better than me. But anyway, rumor and innuendo, even when it's coming from Bruce, may or may not be true.
But hypothetically, if Bruce were to come back, I think you and I have agreed we're going to keep something going, right?
Absolutely. I certainly hope so, because I've certainly enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed working with you and with the sexy stud muffin from Texas, Dave Silva. And certainly I've had a wonderful time. I'm glad that Bruce let me keep his chair here for a while.
I don't know if you've seen, but anytime that comes up on my Twitter feed, the number one thing I always see is this not the best replacement or stand-in host of all time? So you're in the Hall of Fame of substitute podcast hosts already, if there is such a Hall of Fame.
Outstanding. The stand-in Hall of Fame. I like it. That's the only Hall of Fame Simmons hadn't made. Everywhere he goes, he's in a different Hall of Fame, but he's not a stand-in Hall of Fame. So I may have one up on him.
I do want to talk a little bit about some other news and notes before we get into our topic today, but we're going to be talking about some of the toughest guys in wrestling. And we want to hear from you. If you've got questions about some tough guys in wrestling, we certainly want to get your feedback. And if you're wondering, yes, we are going to be talking about what happened at that independent wrestling event this past weekend with the son of Rampage Jackson. Stay tuned for all of that and more here on this live edition of Something to Wrestle. I guess the news is out. Wrestlepalooza has been announced. It is, in fact, going to be live on ESPN on September 20th. This, of course, is going to be the exact same day that Indiana is hosting Illinois. Pat McAfee, of course, is probably going to be at game day in Indiana, if I had to guess. And we have now confirmed that he will in fact return at Wrestlepalooza. Now, I don't know if he's doing anything in the ring, but if I were a betting man, and I know you are, I'd bet on him doing something in the ring on ESPN. Don't you think?
In his home state?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much a lock. I would bet that would happen. And we don't have any inside information on this, but I would bet he does something in the ring. Pat's just a fun guy. You watch him out there playing with his soccer team, and you watch all this different stuff he does. I mean, Pat just enjoys life. And so I can't see him not doing something that will be fun to him, and fun to him is getting involved.
We know that we're all looking forward to Wrestlepalooza because the rumor and innuendo is that John Cena is going to be facing an opponent he hasn't wrestled in more than a decade. If you've done a little Googling, that may or may not be Brock Lesnar. Like, that feels like a major happening to have one of John Cena's last matches on ESPN. Brock Lesnar, who was obviously a superstar in ESPN, him appearing on ESPN with Pat McAfee. I mean, September 20th might be one of the more loaded WWE shows of the year when it's all said and done, don't you think?
Yeah, it sure could be. And you got to look at it. I mean, these guys are excellent, great at planning. I'm talking about the WWE guys right now. I mean, they're just fantastic the way they build big shows. And John Cena has always been great about dictating his own career, about planning things big like this. And I can't see that there's not going to be something like this, whether it's Brock Lesnar or somebody. It's going to be somebody huge. And I can't wait to see this, because I think all the last matches of John that we're going to see are going to be like this. They're all going to be moments in time that you're going to want to see, that you're going to remember for a very long time. And this is really cool what he's doing.
It's easy for us to talk in hyperboles and hypotheticals, but as you take a look at the business of what this move is going to mean for WWE and for ESPN, like, this feels like, perhaps, I mean, Jeff and I called it a couple of weeks ago. We think it might be the biggest deal in WWE history when it's all said and done, because that promotional machine of ESPN is going to be pushing it. I mean, this feels like, I don't know, opening the red velvet rope, if you will, for WWE into the sport. I mean, think back during the Attitude Era imagine if we had Stone Cold and The Rock being covered on ESPN. Like, that would have been bananas, wouldn't it?
Oh my God. You can imagine the glass breaking on ESPN and Stone
Yeah.
Cold coming out. They would do that now. They
Yes.
wouldn't do that then. I remember we were in Texas, and I remember they said, hey, the Dallas Morning News is covering us, the sports section. And I remember looking at the sports section to see the results, and it was like two little lines down at the bottom, like John Hogg versus Black Bart or something. It's just like it was nothing, But that was big news for us back then, that they would even think about covering us and letting us be in the sports section. That's why it was so big, Hogan being on a cover of Sports Illustrated. That just didn't happen. And it didn't happen with ESPN back then. And we had so many people when we started putting us on ESPN. There was a lot of pushback. There's not anymore, because now it's just sports entertainment. Now sports are sports entertainment. I'm not saying it's fixed. I'm not saying any of that is the case, but it's entertainment, and they understand that. That's why they have so many personalities, and great personalities, on ESPN. Pat McAfee's a terrific personality who's built this incredible brand. That's sports entertainment is what Pat is. And he's done a great job at it. And ESPN understands that now.
It's going to be really interesting to see what's possible. And I do want to maybe think back, because I know Jonathan Coachman may have been the first guy to help try to cross WWE over into ESPN coverage. Is there anybody else you think that was sort of campaigning for that, or is that even something that was on Vince's radar? Was it a priority when Coach was first trying to push WWE and ESPN together?
I don't think it was a huge priority, because we didn't know where it would go, because we knew we weren't going to be on their programming. So we didn't know where it would go. And Coach was a big deal in that. He was a big deal in all of it. Coach did a great job at ESPN. He was a terrific host. And because of that name, the Coach going there and getting that name, that it helped bridge that gap with us getting to ESPN. Coach was a big part of that, and did a wonderful job. Coach is a terrific host, terrific talent, terrific. He's very talented at everything he does, and so that was huge for us, for Coach to be there and to help liaison that to get us on ESPN.
It is going to be interesting to see what this looks like, because it wasn't all that long ago in the scheme of things, but it does feel like a long time ago. 1997, of course, is when WWE was able to return to New Jersey and not have to pay that state athletic commission tax. But for so long, I know that some of the old school folks were upset that Vince was sort of saying, hey, this is entertainment. It's not just sports. Do you think that once upon a time, just because of that relief of the state athletic commissions, because I don't think a lot of people understand that part, it's a tax too, more than just going. Can you explain just how that relationship works?
I used to see how much we'd pay, because I was good friends with Tim White and Jack Lanza, and Tim White was the one. Tim White was a big part of Vince McMahon's operation, because he would go and he made sure guys didn't steal money from us, and that was huge back then, because you had cash business everywhere. Imagine having a $70,000 house. Gerald Briscoe used to talk about carrying money for Crockett all the time. He'd have, $25,000, $30,000 in a briefcase. He'd literally handcuff it to himself. In fact, he offered to wrestle a guy one time in a bar for $30,000, and Michael Hayes talked him out of it. So maybe Gerald Briscoe wasn't the best. Actually, maybe he'd been the best person to have it, because nobody could take it from him. But it was a huge cash business, and Tim White was the one that you couldn't steal money from Tim. He was too smart. He would sit there with these guys. Guys would have double registers, double tickets. They would double count stuff, stick money in their pocket. Tim was the guy that took care of all of us. And I remember being in Baltimore. We had a sold-out house, and I remember the times I was there, it was between $34,000 and $38,000 that we had paid the commission, and they did nothing. I mean, they're the ones that's supposed to show up and take care of like low-income boxers that don't have health insurance, get knocked out. They're supposed to take care of those guys. They didn't do that. They showed up to the big events, and they'd take money from us, and big amounts of money. I remember being there one time. I just got flown in. I had some energy drink or something. My blood pressure was like 180 over 120. It normally wasn't very high, but it was that day. And it could have been what I've been doing for the last week, but it was 180 or 120. They said, "Oh, did you have you've had a rough day?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, don't worry about it." They didn't care. They didn't care at all. And so when Vince came out and said, "We are not sport, we are entertainment, therefore we should not be regulated by the commissions," what he was trying to get at was these commissions who were taking $34,000 to $38,000 from us, say in Baltimore Arena. He was trying to get away from that, because they were just criminals. It was what's left over from the mafia.
Man, It's hard to believe that wasn't that long ago. I'm glad that rule changed. I'm glad WWE can keep the revenue. It's much more.
Those guys were straight mob, man. I mean, they were just straight mob. That's where they got it from. They were just straight mob, and they ran everything, and they took the huge cut. They still got these commissions. I've seen the Maryland commission lately. Really nice guys, super guys, very friendly guys. They still got some of these commissions around. I'm sure they've changed. I have no idea what they're like now. I just knew what they were like back then, and they were terrible back then.
So talk to me a little bit about, ESPN back then. Do you think that because Vince was trying to make that distinction that we're sports entertainment, we're not sports, would he have maybe shied away from an ESPN type partnership because he didn't want to have the illusion of sport back then? Or is that not even something that would have crossed his mind?
That wouldn't have crossed his mind. I just think he thought that it wasn't available to him. They had their purist, when we had that deal and Coach helped broker that whole deal and liaison that whole deal, there was a lot of pushback from the purists in sport, but there's a lot of pushback in the purists in sport. Ron Fuller, when he first brought hockey down to Tennessee, the NHL was there and said, don't you dare do anything like this again. When he had this crazy entrance with smoke and he had sold out the arena, he sold out his arena so much. He sold more for minor league hockey than several of the National Hockey League teams did. Within a year, they were all copying him, every one of them. But when they first saw it, they told him, this is not hockey. This is not sport. Don't you do this. Sport hated that. And they didn't like us. They didn't like us being on ESPN because they were the purist. It's kind of like the purist old guys in wrestling hated the word sports entertainment because we weren't sports entertainment. We were this wrestling group that they want to be wrestling forever. And they forgot that the business has been exposed since the start of it.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this ESPN opportunity, because one of the things I wondered is, does this mean we might get like some guest commentators or talking heads? Like, are we going to have Stephen A talking about pro wrestling? Are we going to have someone sort of breaking news on ESPN about WWE? Will there be a draft? Like we've always heard about the WWE draft. Will that be covered differently now on ESPN? What do you expect with this?
I expect all. I'm sorry, I expect all the above. I was just watching Roflo on Major League Baseball, and I love that guy. He brings up wrestling all the time. Stephen A. brings up wrestling all the time. Brought up Paul Heyman one day. He brings up stuff all. These guys watch what we do. What we do is entertainment. We watch what they do because what they do is entertainment. It's fun. People just want to be entertained. And so, yeah, I think there's going to be a huge cross section here of talent going back and forth. I think it's going to be great for both sides. I think you're going to see our guys at big games. Actually, you see our guys in college game day, as you're already seeing. A lot to do thanks to Pat McAfee. You're going to see a lot of guys in Monday Night Football arena where we have these huge games. I think you're going to see all of this. And I think it's going to be great for both sides.
Well, I can't wait to see what it looks like when we have.
Hey, Connor, if I can just real quick. I mean, what the thing to me, we were talking this weekend and with Ron Simmons and about the Savannah Bananas. If you told me about 6 or 7 years ago, I'm going to have a baseball team, and it's going to be like the Harlem Globetrotters. We're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. The umpire's going to do flips and call people out. They're going to have these guys catching with their hat and stuff. You'd say that'll okay, that's cute, but you're not going to make any money. Those guys are selling out with a waiting list right now. Major League Baseball stadiums. They just put 47,000 people in St. Louis with a waiting list of people that couldn't get in because people want to be entertained. People simply want to be entertained. That's why SportsCenter now is more entertaining. That's why you have these personalities like Stephen A. and Pat McAfee. That's why people love wrestling so much. So I think this new world of sports is going to be much more involved in entertainment because you realize to take people's time, that's a lot. It's a lot to ask of someone to give you a couple hours. You owe it to them to entertain them. And I think that's what people are seeing now in sports.
I got to tell you, I'm excited to see a hypothetical draft. If they make it feel like the NFL draft and they sell tickets and people come out and make picks and there's an analyst, I mean, that could be fun. But I even think about like WrestleMania. So the Super Bowl pre-show is one of the most watched pieces on TV all year. And then the Super Bowl halftime show, just based on the size of the audience, it does feel like we're going to have musical guests at WrestleMania that'll be featured in a much bigger, almost Super Bowl-esque way. We'll have a pre-show and post-show covered on ESPN. I mean, this is all going to lead to the biggest WrestleMania year after year after year, starting next year, don't you think?
Absolutely. I was in the creative room when they're coming up with the draft one year, and I said, Vince, are you going to have a Mr. Irrelevant? Because they had come up from ESPN, the last pick in the draft. And Vince, you could tell, was kind of getting bored because after like the first 2 or 3 picks, it doesn't really matter after that, in the wrestling drafts. It really doesn't. I know you got to pick up sides and make it entertainment, but it really doesn't. And Vince looks up and he goes, are you thinking Heath Slater? And I said, you're damn right I am. And all of a sudden, Vince got interested. And he said, we're not going to draft him. We're going to leave him there and turn the lights out on him. And he made it. All of a sudden, the top of his head, Vince starts running through all this. We got that from the NFL draft for us. And I remember telling Heath about it. I said, Heath, we're not going to draft you. He was so mad. What the fuck? I've been working my ass off. This is bullshit. I said, Heath, this is the best thing's ever happened to you. And I started explaining it to him. He goes, oh, wow, this is cool. And I said, yes, it is. And it was. It was better. Heath had, and Heath, who's a very talented guy, did such a great job with it. But that all came from the NFL draft influencing what we did.
I can't wait to see WWE on ESPN. We are live, and we are going to be talking about the tough guys today. If you've got a question for John, we want to hear it. But first, I want to brag about our sponsor, StopBox. Big fan of this product, and you will be too. I'm talking to you. If you own a handgun for self-defense, you already know it comes with serious responsibility. You need that dude secure, but you also need it accessible when it matters most. And too often, that means choosing between locking it away or leaving it out, which means it's vulnerable to kids, guests, or intruders. And that's the problem that StopBox USA set out to solve. And I think they nailed it with the StopBox Pro. It's 100% mechanical, keyless, battery-free lockbox that gives you instant controlled access to your firearm with no electronics, keys, or codes required. That's right. No keys, no codes, no apps. Just a patented 5-button locking system that responds only to your unique input. It's fast, intuitive, and built for muscle memory. So you're not thinking, you're reacting. And when seconds matter, well, that makes all the difference in the world. And with the StopBox Pro, you don't have to trade safety for speed or peace of mind for readiness. Your firearm stays secure, but always within reach. And you don't have to worry about tariffs because everything is sourced right here in the USA. All the StopBox products are proudly made here in the USA. Not only does that ensure the highest quality, but it also creates meaningful jobs and opportunities for the American worker. And speaking of America, did you know the StopBox Pro is TSA compliant? Yeah, you can check it and you're good to go. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting a crazy good deal on StopBox. Get 15% off your entire order when you use the code STW. And for even better savings, shop their bundles for the best deals on their best-selling products. Check out their bundles and save an exclusive 15% off site-wide when you use the code STW at StopBoxUSA.com. Discover a better way to balance security and readiness with StopBox. Hey, so, John, we're talking about the tough guys, but before we do, I want to hit a few more news and notes because a lot of people have been wondering, hey, with this new ESPN deal, what the hell happens to Peacock? Well, it turns out Peacock is going to be keeping some WWE content. There's a new multi-year partnership to exclusively stream Saturday night's main event on Peacock. Now, that means that Saturday night's main event is not going to be on NBC. It's going to be exclusive for Peacock. The final 2 Saturday night's main events have been announced for this year, November 1st, and then John Cena's retirement match, his final match on December 13th. Saturday night's main event will happen in prime time 4 times a year. And the WWE Network library all those old archives that we love talking about here on Something to Wrestle, they're going to remain on Peacock through the end of the year. And the NXT PLEs are going to be on Peacock through March of next year. Nothing's changing regarding SmackDown. It's still on the USA Network, and it's on a 30-day delay on Peacock. I was talking to our buddy Jeff the other day, and I know that people inside the wrestling bubble, respectfully, they think, and I even saw a report from Brandon Thurston where he was almost insinuating, hey, there's all of these different companies and platforms that WWE has to deal with. And he was almost insinuating maybe they've sort of blocked everybody else out. But Jeff actually put a bug in my ear when we were just shooting the breeze last week. They're following the NFL model here, John, because everybody gets a little NFL. You see almost every platform has the ability to carry a few games or something. WWE, that's what they've done. They've gone to every potential platform partner, get as much money as they can. I mean, this is 101, is it not?
100%. And you think about it, if you've got Saturday night's main event and you get it on Peacock and you got some library stuff as well from SmackDown after 30-day window, I mean, they're going to promote the hell out of this thing. So you're going to get all kinds of promotion because you have it on Peacock, and it's because it's the biggest thing that you have WWE wise on Peacock. Now, if you had everything on Peacock, you wouldn't be promoting that as much. So you're getting, I don't know how much multiple of promotion by having it on so many different platforms, because every platform is going to push what they have, because it's the biggest thing they have the WWE wise, and it's about the hottest product in the world right now. So they're going to be pushing this thing like crazy, promoting it. You're getting a multiple of the promotion from every different source out there for free. You're getting all this promotion. It is, I tell you what, I've never seen a better run business. It's just absolutely amazing.
I do want your opinion on this, because first of all, you and I both love the business piece of this, and we're big fans of it. So rah WWE, I love it. However, I am curious how you feel about John Cena's last match not being on NBC. When we first heard that this was going to be a Saturday night's main event, I, for one, thought, hey man, how cool is that? They're going to put it on NBC. So it's not on ESPN. It's not on NBC. It's going to be on Peacock. Folks are going to have to pay for it. I don't have a problem with that necessarily. I mean, it's much cheaper than if they were doing it on a pay-per-view. But I think for John, I would have liked to have seen his last match on TV. But maybe they're thinking September 20th. That's as close as we're going to get to that. What do you think? Should John Cena's last match have been on free TV, or are you okay with it being on Peacock?
I'm okay with it, because obviously they've thought it through. I mean, they've thought all this stuff through. Now, is Peacock also, how will you see this if you're in Europe or Asia or Africa or South America? How will you see John's last match?
That's a great question. I mean, I think that you might be able to see it on the WWE network.
Right.
Because I think those countries still have the WWE network, like the old school version, like we all had in 2014.
Right. So, I mean, that's where I think you get the massive distribution globally is what you get. And, they've got all these TV deals already. I mean, it's just a matter of who you're going to throw the bone to, I think is the most important thing. So I'm sure they looked at this and said, okay, this is the most important place to put. I'm sure that's how they looked at it, rather than the other way around. Like, okay, we're going to get this the most broad distribution. It's where's the most important place for our business and our model to put this, and that was obviously appears to be Peacock.
Well, and it feels like, if nothing else, WWE threw a major bone to NBC Universal by allowing it to be on Peacock. Even a guy who's with us here live, 4VKM, I wonder what that stands for, says, plus taking it off NBC, now I can't cancel my Peacock subscription. NBC's move to keep the WWE fans subscribed. I'm not canceling. I want to see John's last match.
I do too. But, I do too. And so I'm going to keep Peacock at least through John's last match. I'm sure I'll keep it after that. I don't hardly cancel anything. I need, got too many. I think I still have an old Vine subscription probably. So, and a tout. But so I probably need to go through my subscription, but I'm not getting rid of it. And I don't see anybody would. I mean, can you imagine negotiation with Peacock and you're saying, here's what we're going to do. Give you Saturday night's main event. We're also giving you John Cena's last match, one of, if not the greatest of all time. I mean, that pretty much, that's it. That's a microphone drop in the negotiation room.
We've speculated here on the show about John Cena's last match that I think it'll probably be Logan Paul. And Logan Paul actually had a John Cena quote this past weekend. He said, John Cena is the greatest of all time for now. I intend to be the greatest of all time, if not one of the greatest of all times. I want my name thrown in the hat. There's a real thing when it comes to being a locker room leader. Like the guy who leads the company is the face of the company, is respectful to everyone in the crew, to everyone who helps make this well-oiled machine work. And John Cena has been that guy for 20, 25 years. I fully believe I have the capacity to do all of that. John, you've seen how Logan operates. You've certainly seen how John Cena operates. Do you think Logan has it in him to be the next John Cena?
Well, it depends on what you mean the next John Cena. Locker room leader, I don't care if there's a locker room leader or not. I want a guy that draws ratings, and I'm not in the locker room, so I don't know how Logan Paul is. I know from meeting him what a super nice, respectful guy he is. I have a lot of respect for Logan and what he's done. But as far as a draw like John Cena, yeah, I think Logan could be that. I mean, that's a tough ask. I mean, that's not, can I take over for the champion that, isn't up there as listed as one of the greatest of all time. A lot of guys can be champion, guys that transcend the genre. Those guys are rare. And Logan Paul may be able to do that. He's already done it with his social media. I mean, he's built something that he and his brother, is one of the biggest draws in boxing in history right now. And no telling what his next fights are going to do. Logan Paul is the same. I mean, what he's done up till now has been amazing. What he can do in the next 10 years, maybe even more amazing. So can he do it? 100% he can do it. Will he? I don't know. I hope he does, because I'd love to see it, because he seems like a terrific human being from what I've just met him and talked to him a few times.
Well, it does feel like that's going to be the main event this weekend. Of course, this weekend is not only Labor Day, but it's also the Clash in Paris, and it's going to happen on August 31st. So this weekend, this Sunday on Labor Day, we're going to have, or the day before Labor Day, what a show it'll be. John Cena and Logan Paul in the main event. You're a betting man. What do you think?
I think Cena's got to win this thing. I think Cena's got to win this. There may be a return. If I'm booking this, okay, and again, I have no inside information whatsoever, and they're going to quote me this. JBL said this should happen. I don't know what should happen. I'm just fantasy booking here like any other fan does. I put Cena over, figured out a way for Logan Paul to get something type of return, and that's when you do business. So, I would think Cena would be the one that would go over and leave everybody happy with the hand up.
We also got to talk about the Fatal 4-Way for the World Heavyweight Championship. We've got Seth Rollins defending his world title against CM Punk, Jey Uso, and LA Knight. This is a hard one to call, these 4-Ways. What do you think, John? Who would you pick?
That one is tough to me. I mean, Jey Uso, it took the title off of him so that Gunther could have this last match, it appears, from what it looks like from outside looking in. And so I don't know on this. I think, to me, I don't know. It's Seth or Jay is what I believe it's going to be.
Man, we want to hear from you guys. Who do you think? Seth or Jay or Punk or LA Knight? Oh, my. That's going to be fun. Sheamus is going to be in there with Rusev. They're calling it a good old-fashioned Donnybrook match. I mean, hey, if we're going to be in Europe, why not have a European flair? Two big, meaty men slapping meat or whatever the case.
That's going to be stiff.
Yeah. What do you think, Sheamus or Rusev? Who needs the win, John?
I think Rusev does. Rusev's back. Sheamus isn't going to get hurt. The guy's got a lifetime pass for it. People love Sheamus, and Rusev's back. I think Sheamus probably needs the W. I think he probably gets it, but I think this is going to be fun to watch. I think they're going to beat the shit out of each other. And it's one of those matches where you watch it and you go, this is awesome to watch. I'm glad I'm not in it, but this is going to be fun to watch.
I haven't seen Sheamus.
Two big, stiff guys.
I haven't seen Sheamus in a long time. When was the last time you saw Sheamus?
In person, it's been last time I was in WWE, which was a long time ago. I don't know when I saw him last. He was in shape then. He came back, and that's when they made the burger after burger comment, and he had, wasn't prepared to come back. Then he got in shape incredibly fast, which is pretty amazing. He works very hard, obviously.
Did you know that was his line? Have you heard that?
I heard that, and I'm so happy that he did that. That tells me so much about him.
Yes.
When you give your opponent a line like that people are going to repeat forever.
Yes.
That's just fantastic. That's how the business is supposed to work.
Well, let's talk about how this is going to work. Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman, of course, is going to be in Bronson Reed's corner. You got to assume there may be some shenanigans here.
I got warned by Dave Silva not to put my can down really hard. He actually berated me by text. He berated me. I was putting down my can too hard.
You've been on the show long enough. You're becoming Bruce. I don't know. Clearly, you're molting. Roman Reigns is going over on Bronson Reed, don't you think? Or is this another story? Is this a wrinkle? What would you do, John?
Roman Reigns. He's your guy, and I just don't see how you do anything to put Roman over. I mean, he's your guy. You're waiting for him to come back and end up in some big-time role. That's what he's built for, and I think this is just a good match, and to me, you put Roman over. If they don't, I think it's incredible business. They obviously have something planned, but to me, I think you put Roman over.
There's been a lot of talk about Becky Lynch's incredible promos in recent weeks. She's going to be defending her title against Nikki Bella. The Intercontinental Championship is on the line. Of course, that belt wasn't even around when Nikki was here before. What do you expect in this one, John? Is Becky getting her hand raised, or is Nikki, for the first time, the Intercontinental Champion?
This one's tough to call. I mean, this one's I don't know on this one. I really don't. I think neither one get hurt from this by losing. Sometimes, say wins and losses. A lot of people say they don't matter. I think they do. But when you got two top talent, they don't necessarily. It's like two great boxers or two great fighters. Somebody's got to lose between two great athletes. And I don't think it hurts either one. I don't know. Nikki's coming. It's just Becky has been so good. And all of a sudden Nikki's returning with the great stars of all time. I mean, this is a great matchup.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I'm going to be watching. I know you will be too. Listen up, WWE Universe. Clash in Paris is almost here, and my bookie's got the action. John Cena versus Logan Paul might just break the internet. It's the GOAT versus the viral megastar. One's built on legacy, the other on views, but both are drawing serious action on my bookie. You can talk about match winners, method of victory, surprise run-in. Best believe if it can happen in the ring, you can bet on it. And while the action's heating up in Paris, football season is right behind it. It's prime time to cash in. And if you're trying to bet it all in one place, MyBookie is your headquarters. And if you're new to MyBookie, use our code WRESTLE50, and any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your Bet Back bonus token. Clash in Paris is going down. Football's on deck. It's a damn good time to be a bettor. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. And this feels like a fun time to mention, John, that you have a lot of fun with this. This is your favorite pastime, and you actually do a little show called 5 Best Bets. You're even on Twitter, and I know that you are personally fired up to not only be able to make some bets on wrestling, but with football season coming back, this is like Christmas for guys like you and I, is it not?
Oh my God, it's the greatest betting time of the year because you still got baseball. I love betting on daily baseball. I'm a numbers guy, so I love crunching numbers. I love betting baseball. I put out 5 best bets today. I bet I had 15 to 20 bets on there. I said say 5 best bets. That's my best bets, but I always put a lot more bets that don't fit into that first the top 5 category just to give out a ton of bets. Because I bet all these games, but football to me, it's just I love football, and I love this time of year when baseball's still going. Football's able to bet. It's so much fun. College football, everything. I'm 2-0 right now on my college bets. I had Sam Houston over, and I think Iowa State +3 the first game. And don't know how I've done so far yet today, but I got a bunch of U.S. Open tennis matches for today and one WNBA game. I love 5 best bets. It's one of the favorite things I do. I just started doing it where I'm trying to put it out every single afternoon, about 3 to 4 o'clock, at least Monday through Friday. And that way it'll be on our YouTube channel, Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. But it's at 5 best bets is the Twitter feed. And you'll see it on there. I keep a record of everything. Again, we're not selling nothing. We're me and Mr. Briscoe, we're just putting out bets that we love to talk about it. It's all free, 100% free. And they are bets that I'm betting. So if they lose, you don't have to yell at me. I yell at myself.
Yeah, I think that's important. There's a lot of people online who are selling picks. You're not doing that. You're just saying, hey, here's what I like. Here's what I'm betting. And John uses the MyBookie app, and you should too. Go check it out. Use that code WRESTLE50. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we are live, and we want to have your questions. We are going to be talking about the legitimate tough guys in wrestling, and we're going to pick John's brain on that. But before we do, I want to do 2 things. I do want to talk about the rumor and innuendo that Chris Jericho might be coming back. But let's take a minute to answer some questions from our live studio audience. So if you've got a question for John, keep them coming. AOTV Production says, hey, John, how did Vince seem when you last saw him? So we're not saying you last saw him this past weekend, but hypothetically, how does he seem? I think a lot of people just want to know physically, mentally, how's his personality, how are his spirits? We haven't seen or heard from him in a long time, John.
Yeah, allegedly, AOTV, and thank you for the question. If I saw him this weekend, I probably would have had a very good experience with him, and he probably would come across very well. I think people misunderstand. Vince, when they see him, they say, oh, he's looking older. No, he looks great for an 80-year-old guy. He looks bad for a 40-year-old guy. People are used to seeing him on TV when he's younger. He's 20 years from 100 right now. And so I think he's getting along ground. He's getting along great. And, Vince and I have always had a good relationship. So if I did see him, it would have been probably a wonderful experience.
Hypothetically, I don't know that I've ever shown you this, but did I tell you that I have this? That is Vince's dad's booking book from 1963.
Oh, my God.
My intention was to try to figure out how to get this to him in time for his birthday, but I missed it. But wow. I'll figure that out. But this actually has his dad's handwriting in it. I mean,
Oh my
like,
God.
yeah. So like this is when the WWF started. This is when they took the belt off of Buddy Rogers. And
So have you got that in the entry as well?
Yeah, it's all here with the gates, the attendance, and it's all in Vince's dad's handwriting. And I found it from a great friend of ours, an author named Brad, who wrote a tremendous book. And Eric and I just fell in love with the guy and all the stuff he did. Well, he came to visit me last year, and he's like, "Hey, I saved these. You said they were the ultimate collectible," because he knew I had like old ones from the Crockett days and things like that. And I was like, "Hey, I don't think I should have this. This belongs to the McMahon family. So I want to make sure that Vince and Shane get this. So I'm going to find a way to get it to Vince."
Wow.
I mean, it's not like I know it.
Awesome.
That's it. I mean, I think everybody'd want to see something that was their dad's, right?
Oh my God. I'm sure Vince would love to see that.
Yeah.
Because he would, for one thing, that's the same type of book he used when he started. Right. He would love that. Yes. Next week, I may have something that is a good, not as good as that. That's world class. That's not in that category. But I may have something here in my office that might be pretty cool of a little memorabilia from Vincent McMahon.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
When you see it, Conrad, I guarantee you, it's nothing you expect. It is. I guarantee you, when you see it, you go, "That John, literally, that was not in the realm of possibility of something I thought about."
Speaking of old stuff, I don't know that I told you this, but when we moved into the new office, we're unpacking boxes, and there was one box that was kind of a mystery box, and nobody could figure out what the hell it was. So when they set it aside for me, like, "Hey, what do we do with this? Is this ours? Did this get in here by mistake? Do we throw it away?" It's a Layfield lure sign that I was going to mail to you. So I got to get that to you.
Tremendous.
I do want to take a minute here to talk to Guy W. Johns, who's with us live. He says it may be their biggest deal, but could the ESPN thing also be WWE's biggest test? After all, they have to convince many fans to spend $30 a month again. That's not true, right? We're going to see some of the major shows like WrestleMania and SummerSlam. If you've got ESPN on your cable package, you're going to get to see that program, right?
That's right. And again, Guy W, that is a lot of what a lot of people have reported, that you're going to be spending that money. You're not, unless you don't have the ESPN, which nearly everybody does already. So I believe it comes, what order you have now is already got it, if what I understand. So it's not just a matter of you having to buy that to get WWE. You got all this ESPN content that most people, I believe already have it. I already have it on my phone, what you need for all of this.
We'll do one more from AOTV Productions. He says, "Hey, John, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns are scheduled to appear in the Street Fighter movie soon. How will this affect WWE? Their roster's so loaded right now. I think Jim Cornette always used to say, 'How can I miss you if you never go away?' So I like that idea of giving them a break. Is there a bad thing? Is there any negative to them being off TV? I mean, this is just good PR, right?
I think it's just good PR, and you got to understand. I mean, Roman has headlined more WrestleManias than I guess anybody in history. I guess he broke Hogan's record by one or two already, and so you've got a guy that you need to find something for them to do. It's good to give him a break. Cody was there every single day for several years. I mean, that's an incredible load and a lot of exposure, and to take them off TV for a while, that's a good thing. That's a good thing for big stars. When you don't have that luxury a lot of times. When a guy gets hot a lot of times in a territory, you can't take that person off TV. You couldn't take Tommy Wildfire Rich off TV because you're territory creators, even though you had a lot of great talent around him. They got so much talent that they can fill the void and let these guys go off and do a movie, and that movie comes out, and these guys will probably come back bigger stars than ever.
Well, somebody that is hoping to come back a bigger star than ever. Allegedly, the rumor and innuendo is that Chris Jericho is eyeballing a return to WWE. It certainly feels as if he's out of dates with AEW. Again, I have no inside information, but I did see that he popped up on a European independent over the weekend, but he was not at the AEW pay-per-view. And there's been lots of speculation where people are talking like it's a foregone conclusion that he shows up at the Royal Rumble. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I have no inside information. I don't know when his contract expires, but a lot of people are picking up on the fact that Jericho has personally liked posts on social media whenever there's speculation that he may be returning to a WWE landscape. And WWE seemingly having some fun with this because on their YouTube channel, they've just started randomly uploading Chris Jericho moments. I love that we've got the rumor and innuendo here working in our favor, What do you think? Will we see Chris Jericho retire and go into the Hall of Fame in WWE?
I hope so. Yeah, because he made such a big name there, and he was the first champion. All of a sudden, beat Rock and Stone Cold the same night. He came in. I remember seeing him back in the early '90s. I was over working for Tenru. It was my first big time step up in a Japanese company. They were doing the junior heavyweight tournament there, and Chris was part of that when he was younger. I remember seeing him then and thinking, man, if this guy lives, he's going to be fantastic. And I say that because they were doing so much crazy stuff at the time. It was wild what they were doing. And he's just been everywhere he's been a massive star. And, I don't know if this negotiation, if he's not coming in, this is a great negotiation for whatever he's doing. So it's smart. Chris is obviously a very smart guy. All the stuff that he's done outside of the business. I hope he does, mainly because I watch a lot more WWE than I watch anything else, and I'd love to be able to see him.
It is interesting to think about what potential matchups exist. As a wrestler, is there anybody on the WWE roster that you look at and you think, oh, I'd like to see him and Chris? Because I heard some speculation that he might be the perfect guy to do some celebrity integrations. The next time we have someone like a Bad Bunny or like a Travis Scott, okay, maybe that's not the best example, but you get where I'm going. If we have a Jelly Roll type person there, I mean, Chris Jericho has the name value to pull that off, and obviously he knows what to do, but what matchups, if anything, intrigues you about Jericho and WWE?
When he did a celebrity interaction with Mickey Rourke, and Mickey brought a bunch of security with him because he didn't realize Chris was working. So, come on. Yeah.
Hey, tell us about that. We haven't spent any time talking about that. In case you're not familiar, years ago, this was around the release of the movie The Wrestler. Mickey Rourke had gotten a big boost to his career from that. And, of course, they thought, well, here's a natural opportunity to do to tie in at WrestleMania. And maybe he got cold feet. Maybe he was concerned he might get embarrassed. Even though Mickey had a boxing background, he brought Ken Shamrock's adopted brother, Frank Shamrock, to sit ringside.
Yeah.
Well, take us back to that. How silly was all that with the benefit?
He had Frank and he had another MMA fighter, I believe, at there with him, man, because he thought Chris was shooting, I guess. He didn't know what the term was. Obviously was not working. Didn't know what that term was either, I don't guess. And even though he did a wrestler movie on Larry King Live, he thought the whole thing with Chris was legit and wanted to fight him. And so he brought these MMA fighters with him into I guess in case they got into this big fight backstage or in the ring or something crazy. I don't know. It was nuts. I mean, it was, here's a guy who played a wrestler in a movie who obviously knows about sports entertainment and still didn't understand it was a work and brought these guys because he was worried about him and Chris getting into a fight. And I guess Chris beating him up.
It is going to be interesting to see how they use Chris Jericho. If the rumors are true that he's coming back again, we don't know. It's all just speculation.
Hey, by the way, have you ever talked to Mickey Rourke?
No, I've never met him.
He's kind of like the Iraqi reporter used to have when they had the delay. When you'd hear, you'd sit there and you'd ask him a question and they would stand there and just look at the camera uncomfortably long and then answer. That's how kind of Mickey Rourke would answer questions. It was there's a delay.
There's an old wrestler who's like that too, but I won't. After, but I'm not going to do it on the show.
Mickey's had a very fun life. He wears the results.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about this past weekend. I don't know if you saw, but AEW presented their Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Obviously, that term means a little, well, it's different now. I mean, now you see on the WWE side of things, they're working with TNA and they're working with AAA and they've got an ID program with GCW, but that's not always been the case. So for years and years, this was a big deal because you saw New Japan and AEW work together. Now we've got the inclusion of CMLL and Stardom. I love the idea that all of these promotions are now working together. And I get that AEW and WWE aren't, but just the idea that there's almost like teams or clusters or organizations. It's almost like there's an AFC and an NFC. I wish it was always like this. Don't you, John?
Yeah, I do too. We couldn't be like that back in the day because these guys actually were in competition, and they're not anymore, and now there's the wrestling business is so big. And I mean that in not just that these companies aren't big like they used to be. They are, but now the wrestling business is truly global. And so you have a much bigger market than you had back then. And, you couldn't have certain companies working with others because they literally were fighting for the same TV time. They were fighting for the same wrestlers. They were fighting for the same everything. It was legit competition back then. And now you don't see that. because the market is now a global market. And so there's really not competition between these companies as far as, these companies fighting each other. And, obviously nobody's competition for the WWE. They're so big.
I'm curious. I know you were traveling over the weekend. Did you get a chance to see any of the AEW pay-per-view?
No, I didn't. I was traveling over the weekend and was down in Texas on Saturday night doing a show down there with Ron Simmons and Pro 360.
There you go. Hey, I wanted to ask, that show was at the O2, and AEW, I guess, set an attendance record there. Over 19,000 fans were in the building, or nearly 19,000, 18,992. Of course, I love when we get to have a little bit of healthy competition. That breaks the prior record for Money in the Bank 2 years ago in 2023 at the O2. What are some of your favorite O2 experiences, if any? Because whenever I talk to JR, he talks about that building almost like it's Madison Square Garden in London.
Yeah, it is. It's a wonderful arena, and it's a very famous arena. Wrestled there in Earl's Court. It was great to be there. And it was always fun to be there because that was a big show. London. I remember back in the mid '90s, I talked to Mick McMichael, who was a referee that was so big in England, and some of the guys there, Tony St. Clair and those guys, they would tell me how many shows would run in London just 10 years previous, talking about the mid 80s. They'd have 40 or 50 shows in London. That's how big the wrestling market is there. So that's why when you'd have a show there, it was so freaking big. It wasn't like anywhere else in Europe. Berlin was huge. Now Paris is huge. It wasn't for us because we didn't have good TV there. But you had certain cities that were special. London was by far the most special, and the O2 Arena was by far the most special arena.
I want to just brag just for a minute because I'm seeing some comments from people who are kind of confused about what's changing and what's not changing with regards to how you can consume WWE. Let me just go ahead and give you some breaking news. This is brought to you by our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. You can not only secure your privacy with Surfshark, but you can enjoy WWE everywhere. Yeah, go right now to surfshark.com/wrestle. You'll get 4 extra months of Surfshark. Internet security is more crucial than ever before. Now you can protect your online life with military-grade encryption and enjoy a secure, unrestricted internet experience. With Surfshark VPN, you can shield your data on public Wi-Fi and avoid identity theft and even fraud. It keeps you safe, even in the most insecure online environments. Never worry about who's spying on your data again. Surfshark has you covered. In other news, geo restrictions are a thing of the past. I'm talking to you, WWE faithful. With Surfshark, you can break through those online barriers and access content from all over the world. Whether it's your streaming of your favorite shows or accessing blocked websites, Surfshark ensures you stay connected wherever you are. And now, in case you don't know this, for travelers, Surfshark can even save you money on flights and hotels. I'm just learning this myself this month. But now you can book and you can eliminate location-based price differences. I didn't even know that was a thing. But there's parts of the country where you can get hotels and flights more affordable than where you can here in America. So why not just book them there? It's a secret travel hack that's always in your back pocket thanks to Surfshark. What are you waiting for? Go secure your privacy right now with Surfshark. And if you go to surfshark.com/wrestle and use the promo code WRESTLE, you'll get 4 extra months free with Surfshark. We are back and we are live here asking and answering your questions. We are going to be talking about the tough guys. But before we do, man, this went viral over the weekend. I'm sure you saw it. Maybe if you haven't seen this, we should catch you up. Rampage Jackson, who I've had the pleasure to meet before, one of the most personable guys you could ever meet. And I was a huge fan, man, when he was in Pride kicking dudes' ass and he came over to the UFC. He was on a tear. You want to talk about charisma, clearly inspired by pro wrestling. He used to wear the old JYD chain, logging chain to the cage. I just absolutely love me some Rampage. I had no idea that his kid was following in his footsteps and getting into MMA. Raja, or Roger, as is how some people have called him, but R-A-J-A is his first name. He's the son of the former UFC light heavyweight champion, Quentin Rampage Jackson. Now, according to TMZ, he's in the crosshairs of the LAPD. If you didn't see this over the weekend, there was a independent show called Knox Pro Academy in Los Angeles. And I guess, Raja fancies himself a streamer. I think he has a deal with Kick, which is what all the kids are doing these days, or so I hear. And so as he approaches the backstage area, John, to just, make his way into the wrestling show, I'm sure the performer who was going to be working with him, and I think his name is Syko Stu or Syko Stu, he knew, hey, I'm going to be working with that guy. So he took what I believe to be an empty beer can that sounded empty and did a little working shot to hit him over the head. And Jackson didn't do anything. And you could hear Stu say something along the lines of, hey, are you not going to sell it? And obviously Mr. Jackson was very upset. This was not discussed ahead of time, not planned. But wrestling a lot of times is improv. So maybe that's where this came from on Stu's standpoint. If you watch the feed long enough, you'll see Stu apologize to Mr. Jackson, not once, not twice, but 3 times, to the point where they're shaking hands multiple times. But then when Jackson takes a front row seat at the show and the matches are happening, you see someone come and approach him and sort of give him the heads up of when the cue is, when he's supposed to slide in for his planned spot. But he's even telling people, Mr. Jackson is, on his Kick stream, hey, I'm going to beat the shit out of this guy. I'm going to start punching him, and I'm not going to stop until they pull me off. And that's exactly what happened. He picked him up and dropped him right on his head, the back of his head, slams against the mat. He's clearly got a concussion at that point. He's unconscious. And he rained down not 1, not 2, but he threw 27 strikes. I think over 20 landed. The result we're hearing is multiple broken bones in his face, multiple broken teeth, to the point where he starts choking on the blood and the teeth. As we're hearing, he actually flatlined. Now, I know that this was not planned by Knox Pro Academy in Los Angeles, and I couldn't believe this, but I saw it this morning. These goofs actually covered Stu afterwards for the pinfall. I can't believe that's real. But at that point, Jackson was out of the building, but other wrestlers had to intervene. One of the other independent guys is biting him on the shoulder. This was an ugly scene, and the stream continued as we saw Jackson almost cutting like a hyped-up promo. They're going to stop playing with me, and they're not going to call me a bitch, and almost trying to justify what had happened. But there's no other way to describe this. This was a crime, was it not, John?
100%. Attempted murder.
Yes.
There's no other way to describe it. And, I'm going to give you some caveats about what could have been done, but I want to make it very clear. This is 100% Raja Jackson's fault. 100%. The fault and the blame lies 100% with this man. I feel sorry for Rampage, who seems like a really good guy. His talk about his son had a concussion. We can talk about that in a minute. And, that he never should have been there and should have been in that situation, which is, I think, correct. But 100% of this blame goes on Raja. I mean, no matter what happens here, once this guy's out, the fight's over. If it is a fight, the guy didn't know he was in a fight. So forget about the fact that, the guy thought he was working and, he knocks him out. But at that point, it's just attempted murder. I mean, you're hitting. I don't care what happens. I don't care if this happened in the back. A guy's down and out, and you just keep punching him. There's no call for that. If this apparently what happened backstage was not planned. He hit him over the head with something, maybe a gimmick bottle or can or something, whatever it was, and you could tell he didn't know what was coming, or at least it certainly didn't look like it. If Raja would have just punched him then, people would have thought, you know what?
Yes.
Deserved.
Yeah.
We get it. Shouldn't have done it. Guy's an MMA fighter. He didn't know it was a work. Shit happens.
Yes.
But it didn't. And then at that point, whatever you do, I feel sorry for Rikishi. He's part of Knox Pro. This happened at his show. Which he had nothing to do with this. He runs a good show. It's not him. So much happened here, and so many people are going to be a fallout from this. And this is 100% on Raja Jackson, and no one else can. You can say what could have happened, and it's easy to do. I can tell you what should have happened in backstage, but there's no reason for this to happen from Raja Jackson's point, especially once you've hit him and knocked him out. That's attempted murder.
Rampage was also on stream, and someone handed him the phone to show him the clip of what happened, and you could see his face change as he watched it. And he looked to someone off camera and he said, Raja's going to probably go to jail.
Yeah.
and probably lose his kick deal. I mean, those feel like foregone conclusions. Yeah. I mean, at this point, it's not a matter of if he's in trouble, but how much.
Yeah.
I mean, and I guess at this point, there's two things to consider. You know, will this be a civil thing? Will this be a criminal thing? Will it be both? And neither one of us really know because we haven't heard from Stu. I do know that Stu's brother has posted that if you see a GoFundMe, it's not them, but he is recovering, and we hope to hear more. We've learned that in 2009 he was struggling with some PTSD. He had proudly served our country and decided to jump into his love of professional wrestling. And guys like Rusev, who we've talked about in wrestling this weekend in WWE, said he's worked with this guy for a long time and knows him to be, there you go. I've known and trained with Stu for 15 years. He's a former U.S. Army veteran and an amazing guy. There are no excuses for what happened in that ring. Praying for a strong kick out. And to your point, you did mention this, and I do think this is fair. Rampage Jackson did point out that his son, who is an MMA fighter, was suffering from a concussion. Here's Rampage's statement. I want to clear up the misinformation about my son, Raja. I've been confirmed with the wrestler is awake and stable. Raja was unexpectedly hit in the side of the head by him moments before Smith's match. Raja was told he could get his payback in the ring. I thought it was a part of the show. It was bad judgment and a work that went wrong. Raja is an MMA fighter, not a pro wrestler, and had no business involved in an event like this. I do not condone my son's actions at all. He suffered a concussion from sparring only days ago and had no business doing anything remotely close to physical contact. As a father, I'm deeply concerned with his health and the well-being of Mr. Smith. That being said, I'm very upset that this happened, but my main concern is now that Mr. Smith will make a speedy recovery. I apologize on his behalf and to Kick for the situation. You talk about putting a dad in a bad spot. This is the spot your dad wants to be, and he's doing the best he can here, I think.
Yeah, and this father's worst nightmare. You know, something like this happens and gets out of control for whatever reason, and you know that's his son. You know, his son may be facing jail time now, and probably should be. You know, that's something. You know, so many things went wrong here, Conrad. I mean, the guy hits him backstage. I mean, they shouldn't have done that. Now, I'm not. Listen, I've said 100% Raja's fault. Okay, I'm not saying that anything was justified in this. What Raja did, but the guy hits him backstage. Shouldn't have done that. I mean, he deserved. You know, if the guy punches him there, that's deserved. Happens. Break it up. All right, everything done. Shit happens. All right, guys, go shake hands. Go on your own way. You know. Then at that point, though, don't put him in the match. I mean, you got an MMA fighter who's not a worker, who's obviously very upset. Don't take that risk. You know, don't let him go out there. And then at that point, things have just gotten completely out of control. You know, and again, 100% Raja's fault, but so much could have happened to have prevented this from happening. Unfortunately, it didn't. It's easier in hindsight always to look at things and go, oh, you should have done this. That's always the easiest thing to do. When it's live and you don't have the benefit of hindsight, the easier said than done.
I want to say I saw a clip earlier that day when he was streaming, talking about Raja, where he referenced the fact that he did have a concussion and he wasn't feeling good, and you know he didn't feel up to going to play golf or something like that, but he still soldiered on to the wrestling event. But I have an empty can here, and I will say this is an easy thing to make some noise. I mean, if you know what you're doing, I'm not trying to be goofy, but I'm just saying I don't think he hit him with a full can of beer, and I'm seeing that said online, but you could hear the hollowness in the can is what I'm trying to get to. And it's clear when he says, are you not going to sell it? He wasn't intentionally trying to hurt him, but maybe Raja didn't get the memo. Maybe he wasn't thinking right or clearly because he had a concussion. But I would venture to say that his MMA career is no longer a priority. Now we're fighting for freedom, right?
Yeah. And I would imagine all kinds of charges go against him. I imagine Silva goes against him because I don't know what this soldier, this veteran, has for health insurance or whatever else, but he shouldn't have to pay this. He didn't do it to himself. And you know, I imagine there's going to be a civil trial for this, and I imagine there's also going to be a criminal trial for this, which there should be. You know, it's again, when a guy's unconscious, I don't care what happens leading up to that point. You know, whether you're justified or not, the fight stops. You know, he's punching this guy when he's completely out. There's no excuse for doing this. This is attempted murder.
We want to send our thoughts and prayers to Mr. Stu. His real name is Stuart Smith, and I'm seeing in the live comments here that apparently his family has posted a GoFundMe in the last hour or so. I did not have that information, but if we find that, we will certainly retweet that from my account and John's account, and certainly from the show account. I guess we should mention that Knox Pro has been removed from the WWE ID program. At least all of that branding is off of their social media accounts today. It seems like they're going to be ending the affiliation there. I hate that for everybody involved, because I know there's a lot of hardworking people in that independent. If I'm honest with you, I didn't even know that Rikishi was involved. But I mean, the independents are a necessary piece and part of the business, and it's very important that those things succeed. So I want to encourage anyone listening to this, don't decide not to attend a Knox Pro event. Right. This guy was not a regular performer there. I'd venture a guess to say he'll never be back. I don't think we'll ever see Mr. Jackson in any form of pro wrestling anywhere as a result of this.
No, I don't. And it's not Knox Pro fault. It's not their fault. There are certain things that probably could have been done, but it's not their fault. I mean, this kid had no business doing what he did. And whether he got hit in the head in the back, that's it doesn't deserve any of this. That wasn't on the behest of Knox Pro either, by the way. Knox Pro is just running a show, and all of a sudden some crazy incident happens. As a business owner, that's one of your worst nightmares. Something like this happens, and all of a sudden it's under your watch. And so, yeah, please don't take it out on Knox Pro. It's certainly not their fault. 100% of this goes on Raja Jackson.
It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out, but it's getting a lot of attention, not just from major streamers like Penguin Zero and TMZ, but even Mr. Beast has come into the action, and he actually tweeted about this. He said, "Dang, man, this hurts to see, especially because I read he was a veteran that used wrestling as an outlet to get over PTSD. Genuinely, if anyone connected to him knows of a way I can help, please reach out. If his kid is a fan or I can help with hospital bills, I don't know, but I'll help." I mean, this is one of the crazier stories of the year, not just in pro wrestling, but in all of streaming. Like, we're not used to seeing this. And you saw, Jackson marching along later. He got a call from someone named Dre who was telling him, "Hey, man, that guy flatlined." And you could tell Raja was not of sound mind, because he said, "My bad." Like, that's not the response you want when you hear that you may have killed someone. My bad. I'm not even, I know it sounds really cold and callous, and it is, but I want to believe he was concussed and had no freaking idea what he was doing, because otherwise, buddy, this is just bad with a capital B.
Yeah, I want to believe that too. I want to give the benefit of the doubt. And I have no idea what the truth is here, what is not the truth. That's what I want to believe. But I certainly don't know. The whole situation was, what a horrible situation.
Jeremy Davis is with us here live, and he says, "How dumb was the ref? He did nothing and counted a 3 count on the victim to end the match." With all due respect, not everybody knows what the creative is going to be, and sometimes people work the boys, and sometimes they do agree to go a little more hardcore. Hell, we saw Brock Lesnar bust open Randy Orton the hard way at SummerSlam less than 10 years ago. I'm not saying it's something they would do all the time, but I'm saying those type of things have happened in wrestling before. But this is so foreign. I mean, again, I'm not a wrestler, John, but the basis of pro wrestling is about, I'm here as a wrestler to take care of my opponent, and the understanding is he's going to take care of me, right?
That's right. And you can't blame the referee. I mean, the referee in UFC is completely different. They're trained to get in between guys when one guy is incapable of defending himself, in case the aggressor doesn't realize that and doesn't stop for whatever reason. The referee's trained to get in there and stop it. This is a working referee. I have no idea, had no idea who he was or what, but he wasn't. He's not trained to do this. This wasn't his. You're not supposed to see this. Is the reason you're not trained to do this. This isn't supposed to happen in the ring, because that's why the referee's not trained to do this. A working referee, and you have no idea who he is. He may be a small guy. He couldn't have done it anyway. You have no idea.
Well, what we know is, we're learning from the live chat here. Scion Timmy 1 says Kick has banned Raja and Rampage. He says, I think Rampage got banned. I mean, listen, there's no good that's going to come out of this. It's just an ugly scene, and I hope that and how about this? I hope Stu makes a recovery.
Yeah.
because you want to talk about Stu being a wrestling star, not the way he intended to be. Is this not the ultimate babyface comeback right here?
Yeah, and I hope he is able to. Here's the guy who served his country, God bless him, and was out there just, trying to do his job, make a living, and do what he loves. I'm about make a living, just doing what he loves. And I love these guys on independents that are doing what they love. I love wrestling too. That's why I go to independent shows and I enjoy them. I sat there and watched an independent show all Saturday night, and me and Ron both. We just sat there and talked about it. We had a great time watching it. We love the business. That's what this young man does. And hopefully he's able to make a comeback. And if he does, yes, he's going to be a world-class babyface.
Well, we're going to make a comeback and talk about JBL's list of tough guys and shooters. But first, I want to brag about Magic Spoon. I don't know if you've heard by now, but maybe you should have if you've been listening to this show for very long. We know you love nostalgia. Well, we all grew up on a big bowl of cereal and some Saturday and Sunday morning wrestling first thing, didn't we? Well, now you can do that, but not with the sugar, instead with protein. Magic Spoon makes high protein, zero sugar cereal and treats reinvented from your childhood. You can taste the nostalgia, but now they've launched a brand new high protein granola. And true to the Magic Spoon promise, it's packed with protein and oh so crunchy. The high protein treats are crispy, crunchy, airy, and an easy way to get 12 grams of protein on the go. I've bragged about this for a long time. They've got flavors like marshmallow, chocolate peanut butter, and dark chocolate. But now they've got brand new granola that packs in 13 grams of protein and 0 added sugars. They come in delicious flavors like dark chocolate almond, honey almond, and peanut butter. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/wrestle or look for Magic Spoon on Amazon or in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/wrestle for $5 off. magicspoon.com/wrestle. So, John, finally, we're going to talk about our topic today. And, we were talking with some of the guys, I call it the back office. And we wanted to talk about the toughest guys in wrestling, the toughest guys that you've been in the ring with, or the ones that maybe you haven't been in the ring with, but you've heard about. What would you like to start with today first, John? The guys you were in the ring with, or just the legendary tough guys that you've heard about through the years?
Let's go legendary.
Okay. Who's at the top of your list? Like if you were to list today the number one badass in the history of professional wrestling, the real tough guy, who is it?
Carl Gotch.
Okay. Tell us why.
Carl Gotch. And I, not a doubt in my mind, but I'd say Carl Gotch. I've done a lot of history stuff, especially Mr. Briscoe on our podcast, Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. Not to give us just a free plug, but give us a free plug. But we've done so much history. And Carl Gotch, it's very interesting. So Billy Robinson was a badass. These guys come out of Wigan with Snake Pit over in England. And Billy Robinson was a badass. There's no doubt about that. But Carl Gotch, was there before him. A lot of people thought that Gotch was probably the best, but I've talked to Jody Malenko about it, who's one of Carl Gotch's students, who's, by the way, a very tough guy and a big-time shooter himself. He said he's been around him and that he saw that people deferred, even the tough guys like Robinson deferred to Gotch when he was around him. You could tell that there was just a little level of respect there about Gotch that was different. So I give it to Carl Gotch.
Of course, Carl Gotch represented the Belgian team in 1984 or 1948, rather, the Olympics there in both freestyle and Greco-Roman. He was going to master catch wrestling before turning pro, and all the others that were there, like Billy Robinson. Man, that's a bygone era. But is there somebody in a more modern era, do you think, or are you still going old school that you never met?
And also, by the way, I just looked it up. Billy Riley was the one of Wigan that trained Gotch. He was such a badass. But, Gotch was, and I'll get to what you're asked, but Gotch was also, Shamrock has told the story. He helped train Shamrock a bit too. Gotch was a badass, man. People, Gerald Briscoe used to tell stories about Gotch, at his house when he trained guys. It's just legendary. But Ken told the story with Gotch. Gotch is sitting there drinking one time for several hours, drunk, and decides to go out and run his class through a bunch of calisthenics. But he did them with them. By the end of the time everybody quits, it was down to just Shamrock and Gotch has been drunk for hours. I mean, Gotch was just a man, brother. It was unbelievable. Now, Billy Robinson was too. Billy Robinson and Jack Briscoe got into another name that should be on that all-time list. And Jack, I'd love to see Jack go at it with Carl Gotch, but he went at it with Billy Robinson, and nobody knows what happened. It was in a hotel room in Australia. Apparently there was a broken thumb and some other stuff, but neither one would tell the story. But I have a feeling I think Jack won it, but at worst it was a draw, I think. But they went at it pretty much all night. Both had been drinking, went up to the hotel and decided to go at it. And I think it sent the promoter into a tailspin because he might have lost his two big talents. He was pretty kind of worried about it. But man, there were some bad dudes that came through there. And by the way, the guy who they called the policeman, he wasn't a policeman, was the guy who trained me, Brad Reingens. Brad has to go on that list, man. Brad was a 1980 Greco-Roman world champion, would have been gold medalist, USA's greatest Greco-Roman. Brad was a bad dude, man. There's been some tough guys in this business.
When you think about big-time badasses and tough guys, I don't think Brad is a name that immediately comes to mind. Would he just be able to tie you up in a pretzel, or what made him such a badass?
Yeah, Brad tied up Frank Anderson, a world champion, just in the gym. But Brad was just a bad dude. Didn't say anything. Brad was just a guy who just never talked much, but he was America's greatest Greco-Roman ever. And he was a guy that kind of took over for Billy, they say, as the policeman in Minnesota, which I don't know if all that's true or not. Brad doesn't seem like the policeman type to me. Brad was I shot with Brad for about 3 months because I had to do conditioning with him. And needless to say, I'm like the Harlem Globetrotters. I'm like the worst in generals against the Globetrotters. He was the Globetrotters. I was the Ophir guy. Brad's a bad dude, man. And anybody who's ever worked with him in Japan, he's legendary. I mean, they treated Brad with freaking kid gloves. He was such a badass.
Who else would make your list on the cut of who were the toughest guys in wrestling?
Danny Hodge, obviously. I mean, Danny Hodge, he was undefeated in wrestling, undefeated in boxing. Hodge was, man, that was a different level. He used to legendary. We go to, hardware stores and grab pliers, and he'd tell the guy, if I break them, can I have them? The guy go, yeah. He'd just sit there and break, for the heck of it, just break sets of pliers. He'd take a steel belted tire and he could squeeze it with his hands. Imagine that. I mean, that you can't do that with a machine in some places. Hodge was a bad dude. Maybe one of the greatest of all time as far as shooters. Leroy McGurk, the blind owner of the Oklahoma Territory. Man, he was a bad dude. I mean, Leroy was he was something else, man. And of course, your old policeman, a guy named John Pesic, was one of the most famous policemen. I mean, he was just a double tough dude. And Farmer Burns, people talk about so much. Farmer Burns used to let himself be hung. He would actually drop with a noose around his neck, and as he'd be hanging, he'd act like he's struggling. He would sit there and whistle because his neck was so strong. I mean, those guys were just different levels. Londos was a different level. Strangler Lewis was a different level.
Wait. You just glossed over that. They're hanging the dude, and he's whistling.
Oh, yeah. Look it up, of course, on the internet. He's back in the 1910s or whatever else, teens or whatever it was. But, yeah, they would hang him. They would drop him, and his neck was so strong, he'd sit there and they'd hang a noose around him. And as he would sit there, he'd whistle, being hung. It was his gimmick. He loved doing that.
My God. My goodness.
Farmer Burns was the first great trainer. He's the one that, trained Gotch, talking about Frank Gotch. He's the one that trained a lot of these guys. Toots Mont, who worked with Vince McMahon Sr. Luthez would say there's never been a dollar that Toots Mont hadn't stolen part of it. But he was a bad dude. He was and I want to say bad, I mean tough, really, really tough guy. But those all guys came from Farmer Burns School.
I mean, Toots Mont really, I don't think people really understand his influence behind the scenes as a promoter, but I wouldn't have known that he was a badass.
Oh,
dropping that.
Toots was a tough dude. That's why nobody messed with him. I mean, nobody messed with him. He was a tough dude. Londos was a tough dude. He had to be.
When we think about of the more modern era, talking about the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s forward, does anybody come to mind? Who stands out to you as being the biggest bully of the woods, if you will?
Nearly everybody will say Jack Briscoe. I mean, anybody, even Harley would put over Jack Briscoe. But then you got a guy like Harley. And Harley was, man, that guy was a fighter. I mean, absolutely legendary stories. Flair, knows Harley very well and will say he's the greatest. And he may be. as far as tough guys. But Harley was legendary how tough he was. But you had a bunch of guys during that time that were really tough guys. Hanson was a super tough guy. Dick Murdoch. Murdoch was famous just for fighting everybody in Amarillo. I mean, that's why the Funks brought him into professional wrestling. He was legendary for going to bars and just fighting people. Murdoch loved to fight. I mean, loved to fight. I've been in brawls with Murdoch, and that guy knocks out whatever he hits. I mean, he's a heck. He looked like as Black Bart would say, a light bulb upside down. He was white and his big belly and his little big chest. But Brother Murdoch was tough.
A light bulb upside down is a tremendous reference. I'll use that for I do want to ask, you mentioned Jack Briscoe, and we know he was a great amateur wrestler, but is that what made him tough? That, if this was a shoot, brother, he's just going to take you down and impose his will on you? That's the answer?
Yeah, Jack was just a super tough guy, but Jack also, like Jerry, he loved to fight. Him and Watts. Watts was a tough guy. Watts was a bully, and a lot of people say that, and he probably was. But Watts was a super tough guy too, big fighter. Him and Jack used to, man, they just got banned from bars. They got so many fights. I mean, Jack Briscoe was a fighter. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a super double, like Jerry. He's a super double tough guy that could go. Those boys, some of the Briscoe brothers, they didn't grow up with any money. They grew up having to fight for everything they had, and they were very, very, very good at it.
We have heard those stories about Harley. Apparently he had just a knockout punch, and maybe there was some hardware in one of the fists or wrists or forearms, or what do you remember hearing about that?
I've heard that, yeah, and I don't know if any of that's true or not. Harley just could fight, and he just had that thing about him. I mean, there was a time where I forgot who he was with. He was playing some pool with the guys, and he thought they were cheating. He just pulls out his dick and pisses all over the pool table. He's in their bar. It's some biker bar. And of course, it turns into a freaking brawl, and Harley doesn't care. Harley loved to fight.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned Dick Murdoch, and you mentioned that you saw brawls. Were you in a brawl? I mean, and if so, were one of those brawls like out of a movie where it's just all are coming and you're breaking?
Oh yeah. Dick's favorite phrase was, "I may have to tap that man." And brother, when he said that, you better be ready. He goes, shit's about to go. We got to fight one time down in South Texas. Yeah. In a bar. And Dick just knocked out everybody he touched. I mean, everybody. Dick could fight, man. He was legendary. He didn't look like it. He didn't look like it, but he was one of those guys that just everything on him was hard as a rock. Shoulders are hard, not big arms. He had a terrible body, but boy, could he fight. We were coming back from the ring one night, me, him, and Killer Tim Brooks, who was another really tough guy. And somebody hit Killer across the face with a whiskey bottle. I mean, right across the face. And it cut him open. I mean, if it hit him in the eye, it put out his eye, but it cut him open all the way right down his nose, just like that. And that Killer didn't even blink. He beat that guy half to death. And Dick was behind me. I was behind Killer. I saw it, and Dick goes, "Pile in, kid." And we fought half the stands that night, and thank God it was Killer and Dick. Those guys they beat up half the crowd.
When we're talking about more modern guys, we're seeing a lot of people throw out the name Haku. Would he make your list?
My God, of course. I was thinking, I was talking more 70s and 80s, and me, Haku was more 80s and 90s. Yeah. And I've never seen Haku fight. Thank God. We're good friends, and I'm so glad. He's just the nicest person. You've met Haku. He's a wonderful human being, but that guy is a killer. I mean, an absolute killer. I've heard Bruce talk about him, but everybody tells the same story, that Haku would literally just surgically knock people out and would knock them unconscious every time. Everything he touched went to sleep. I mean, the stories of Haku are so freaking legendary, but they're all the same. Anybody who tells them will tell you the exact same thing. Haku knocked out 4 people. Haku knocked out 5 people. Haku was like a surgeon. He just simply went bam, 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 bam. Some guys, when things get real fast, it slows down for them. Haku was like that. Apparently, I never saw it. I never saw Haku fight. Thank God. We've always been really good friends. Thank goodness. Me, him, and Barbarian, who I'm very happy I'm friends with as well. But man, Haku was different level. You know, we always joked when the WCW got invaded and we're out there trying to protect Vince in case something happens. If they send over Haku, we're going to send out Shamrock. We're going to watch the fight of the century because those guys might still be fighting.
My God, what a story. Hey, I do want to ask you, you know, when you're talking about badasses, I feel like we've left one out there, an obvious one is right in front of us. Ron Simmons has to be on the list, right?
100%. Nobody messed with Ron. When you talk about unfuckwithable, that all started with Ron. You know, that whole story was the Steiners had duct taped Butch Reed to a ring post. Think about that. Butch Reed was a tough guy. I mean, really, and Butch loved to fight and crazy. Butch Reed was nuts. He rode a horse into a bar one time. I mean, Butch was crazy. Pulled his horse trailer up and rode the horse in the bar, and Butch was nuts. And they had duct taped Steiners to duct tape Butch Reed to the ring post. That's when Arn asked Ron, "Why don't they ever fuck with you?" He goes, "I guess I'm unfuckwithable." And that's when the whole thing started about the unfuckwithable. It all came from Ron Simmons. Nobody ever messed with Ron, ever. It was unbelievable. No one would dare dream cross Ron Simmons. You know, there was a famous match in Japan where Vader had almost knocked out Butch Reed in the corner, and Nick Patrick told me the story. Vader told me the story too. Ron goes, "Tag me." And he comes in, and Vader said before I could move, Ron had picked me up, and Vader didn't leave his feet then and gave him that spine buster. Imagine that, a 450-pound Vader. He gave him a spine buster in Japan. Vader didn't even leave his feet. Vader said, I was on the mat and looking up at Ron going, "Ron, it's a work. It's a work." But that's the respect that Ron has for a very good reason. You know, I used to watch Ron. You know, people talk about him going to the gym all the time, you know, in jeans and a tank top and boots. I saw that 100 times. He would go in there as he got older, you know, the weight got a little bit less, but I say a little bit less. He would go in there and put 405 on a bench and just sit there and rep it a bunch of times in his jeans and boots. He would just sit there and do it a whole bunch of reps and rack it, do couple more, rack it, do a couple more, and go, "You ready?" I go, "Ron, I have to work out to look this bad. I got to work out. I look this bad. You look fantastic." And you're he was probably a 600-pound bencher. He did 225, I think 48 times when he was with Cleveland Browns. He broke Lyle Alzato's rookie record for bench press. I mean, Ron was an unbelievable, you know, you look at him now, his arms are still freaking huge.
Listen, I'm not trying to take away anything from Ron, but I am curious when you hear a guy who just feels like he's that next level. I know there's a lot of hard work that went into it, but some of that just has to be genetic too. Like, I mean, he's made in a fucking factory or something.
Yes, 100%. A lot of that's just God-given. I mean, just God-given ability. I mean, you know, Ron worked very hard to get to where he's at. And, you know, he's a tough guy as far as he doesn't mind hard work. He doesn't mind, you know, being, you know, we'd have matches. Ron didn't care how long we went. He didn't care what he got hit with. He didn't, nothing. He worked very hard. But his brother, John, was a pro bodybuilder. And still is, trains the current Miss Olympia right now in Detroit, the one that won the Olympia 5 or 6 times in a row. He's the trainer for her. But he was a professional bodybuilder. So Ron's genetics are, you know, that's his family. His family got him too. I mean, his brother looks just like him, but he's, you know, he's a trained bodybuilder. So, you know, that's what, you know, if Ron wanted to be a bodybuilder, that's what he would look like, his brother John.
We'll talk a little bit about some other modern names, but I guess I want to phrase it this way. You've been in the ring with almost everybody in the last 20, 30 years. Who was the stiffest? Who do you remember feeling one and going, "Oh, okay, there's another level there"?
Interesting, because most of these tough guys weren't that stiff.
Okay.
You know, most of the shooters were the easiest ones to work with. The tough guys were the easiest ones to work with, you know, because they have nothing to prove. You know, I remember we were in Abilene, Texas one time where I went to college, and I pulled Brock aside before we were working that. I was working with Brock, and I pulled him aside. I said, "Hey, Brock, I want to talk to you." He goes, "I've already talked to Jack." He goes, "I'm going to put you over at your college hometown." I go, "Brock, I don't care who goes over. We got an after party I'm inviting you to." And he goes, "Oh, okay." You know, but that's Brock. Brock doesn't care. The guy won the UFC. And when you have Kurt Angle was the same. All these shooter boys are the same. You know, Shamrock was the same. They know what they can do. Most of those guys are very easy to work with. Most are pretty light, you know, and those guys weren't the stiff ones, and they didn't care about the finish because they knew it was a work. The guys that were bad about it being a work and being stiff were those guys who were not quite like the shooter level, but like just below it, that really wanted to be at that higher level. And so they felt like they had something to prove. And they were the ones that had problems putting people over, and they're the ones that were stiff and, just to kind of prove they were tough guys or whatever. But, they weren't the guys who were at that high level. They didn't care what you hit them with. They didn't care what they did. They didn't care about the finish. The real shooters were really easy to work with.
You're gonna give us a name? You're gonna shit on somebody?
As far as guys that
who was stiff, who was a half-ass tough guy?
No, I don't want to do that because that is, I don't want to be one of those guys who buries all guys. Guys that were easy to work with. I mean, guys like Shamrock were easy to work with. Guys like Blackman were easy to work with. Brock was easy to work with. Kurt was easy to work with. Gerald Briscoe didn't care what you did. Guys like that were so easy. Were just really easy to work with.
Well, somebody else who's easy to work with is BlueChew. I was trying to do a slick transition and have JBL tell us who was stiff in the ring, but I'll tell you what, some people might say he is, and he's extra stiff these days, thanks to BlueChew. John's entering rooms these days, dick first. He's told me that BlueChew is like a cheat code for his crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like somebody gave his downstairs a pep talk in a gym membership. BlueChew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And I've been kicked out of 4 museums for carrying a loaded sculpture. How about that? Guys, this isn't just about performance. This is about your legacy or your third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. When you lay it down, they're talking about how it gets up. And nothing makes you more of a legend than a little BlueChew. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of BlueChew free. Just use the promo code Wrestle at checkout and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Join BlueChew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to BlueChew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thanks to BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast. And John's Wiener. Hey, so John, when we talk about the more modern era, a guy that I have to assume is one of those tough guys is Booker T. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, double tough. Booker is a double tough guy. Booker grew up, his history. So some people have talked about it. I saw Booker allegedly this past weekend. What a good dude, man. We broke in together. Booker is one of these tough guys. And Booker was one of these guys, just like these great tough guys. He didn't care what you hit him with in the ring. He didn't care about the fit. He didn't care at all. I mean, Booker just enjoyed entertaining people. And Booker's one of those guys, if you have a bar fight, you want him on your side. Him and a guy like Godfather as two guys that you want on your side.
I got to ask another name that I've seen him up close and personal, and I know people who maybe haven't would question this. Is Bart Gunn on the list? I feel like he's on the list.
Yeah, 100%. Fun. Bruce tells a story before the Brawl for All that Terry Funk picked Bart Gunn because, Bart had gotten stabbed and apparently beat the guys up that stabbed him. He had this huge scar in his stomach. Bart was a bouncer or something. He'd won a bunch of tough men contests. We didn't know Bart had a heavyweight punch. We knew he was a tough guy, but a lot of guys were tough guys. Billy Gunn's a tough guy too. But nobody knew Bart had this punch like a freaking heavyweight. And apparently he had just destroyed people in other tough men contests. But Bart was a good wrestler too. I mean, Bart was a guy that if he'd gotten to MMA or, could gotten that 4-round fighting like Butterbean was doing, who was so good at another tough guy, Bart could have done some great stuff in combat sports. But yeah, Bart, man, I'm telling you, he knocked out me, he knocked out Dr. Death, and he knocked out Godfather. He's got pretty heavy hands.
When we think about the more modern era, I know you shared the ring a lot with Finley. Would Finley stack up on the list of tough guys too?
Brother, there ain't a list that Finley ain't on if it ain't a list of tough guys. Finley's on it. Finley is, brother, he loved dealing with guys who thought they were tough. Finley is one of those guys, man. Finley could work. Finley could work. Finley was stiff too, but it's just he didn't care coming back at you stiff. These tough guys didn't. They didn't care, getting stiff themselves. And Finley was like that, man. He could work any way you wanted. But yeah, Finley was one of those guys. There were a couple guys over there in Europe that were, man, there was a lot of tough guys. And there are a lot of tough guys in the business. These guys were just better trained tough guys. Gustav Smeasel was a guy that was a man, Connor, he was a walking badass. He was a European strongman champion, European judo champion. I tried to get him a job in WWE. If they'd have hired him instead of Brackus, he'd have been there for 20 years. They would have loved him. I don't know. I wish to this day that was a big mistake by WWE of not signing him. But Gustav was that guy was a badass. And it was funny because I never got challenged in the ring, by a fan. But there were times that at the Catch Wrestling where fans did challenge people, but not the years that I was there. I never saw it. I never saw it myself. But they'd line up and they go, "Who do you want?" And you'd see Gustav Smeasel, this huge big guy, him or Finley, and Finley would. Everybody want to take Finley, and then Finley's the one that would eat them and spit them out. But Dave Taylor, his dad was a huge shooter. Dave Taylor was a badass. I mean, that guy he could go. We had some real shooters over there in Europe, and Finley was, probably the most famous out of all of them, and deservedly so. But man, there were some really tough guys over there.
Talk to me a little bit about Barbarian. We mentioned Haku, but I don't think people talk about Barbarian. But I can't imagine a pissed off Barbarian.
I can't either. And thank God I've never seen it. We're good friends, and God Almighty, man, these guys are different level, Conrad. When I'm talking about, Barb and Haku, they're just different level. I mean, I'd love to see them from a safe distance, like behind the glass that's like bulletproof and everything, and watch them, work, and now they're all older now, but they could, I'm sure, still do it. But, when I heard the most interesting stories, we were in St. Louis there working for Herb Simmons. And afterwards, we sat there and had some beers, just us. It was me, Gerald Briscoe, and Haku and Barb. And I can't remember who else was there. Maybe a couple of the guys. There were a couple of guys. I can't remember who all was there. But they were telling us the story about being sent off to the sumo school in Japan. And Barb was there first, and then Haku came after. And the king of Tonga sent them off because they were, the biggest and the toughest of the young kids to make a name for themselves. In fact, they were so good, they changed the rules in sumo that they weren't allowing guys to come from basically Polynesia because they're beating up everybody. But Haku would tell me about Barb being there, about how good he was. And it's just kind of cool. I love this about it because they'd say the same thing about Brock. Brock apparently wasn't a great wrestler. He just beat people up. He was such a freak of nature. He just beat people up. That's how Barb did sumo. He just beat people up. I mean, Barb was a badass. You can imagine those two young guys full of piss and vinegar in Japan for the first time, Haku and Barbarian out on their own. I mean, that was their story is incredible. Both those guys.
When we take a look and we talk about the modern era, we get a lot of questions about guys like Steve Blackman in our live chat. Was he a tough guy or a shooter, or what's the difference, at least from your perspective?
I think both. I mean, there's a huge difference. There's not a huge, guys can be shooters and not be tough guys. Guys can be tough guys and not be shooters. I think there's a lot of tough guys. I mean, we had a dressing room back then. I remember, somebody made the comment that we haven't even brought up, said, I can whoop everybody's ass in the dressing room. And I remember Paul Bearer saying, I don't know if you can or not, but everybody in this dressing room will fight you. We had a lot of tough guys, but there weren't a lot of shooters. Blackman was a shooter. I mean, Blackman was a trained martial artist. And what gets me is, I wish Steve had been 10 years later, because he probably would have been in UFC. And I think he could have done some really cool things. UFC just wasn't that big then. Ken went in and did great. Severn went in and did great. I think Blackman would have done great as well. It's just you're making more money in WWE. I wish Steve had been a little bit later, because he probably would have been in UFC and would have done, I think, very, very well.
You said somebody we haven't named. Is it a name you can share? Are they a badass, or is that not something you want to share?
What's that?
When you were referencing, hey, I could whip everybody's ass in the locker.
Oh, no, it was a guy who just come in that was kind of mouthing off, and he kind of changed his tune just a little bit later. So it got corrected. It got corrected through some very, very intense ribs, very intense.
Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. I mean, these are no brainers. We all know these guys can pretty much impose their will on you time. Joe Rogan used to have a fabulous bit about Brock Lesnar. They're both on the list, right?
Oh my God, of course they are. Yeah. Kurt, I love when people say, because I love having a response. Kurt was really good. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. He wasn't really good. He was the best out of 8.5 billion people on the planet. That's not good. That's fucking alien. That's what Kurt was. Kurt was, he may be the greatest wrestler of all time. You put him up there with Dan Gable. That's how you think of Kurt. And he did it with a broken neck, which, is always what he loves to say, but that's true. His story of going to the Olympics, when the doctor said, I've got this plan for you, he just gave him a bunch of drugs is all he did. That's not a doctor. That's a hookup, and Kurt won that with a neck that was he shouldn't even been out there. He shouldn't be playing golf, much less wrestling. And he won it because the doctor gave him a bunch of pills to get over it. It's insane what Kurt did. And Brock's the same. Brock goes out and wins the UFC and without much training at all in combat sports, beats Randy Couture, one of the greatest legends of all time. Yeah, you talk about modern day tough guys, shooters, all the above. Those two guys are at the top of the list.
We've got Guy W. Johns, who is asking a question about the tough guys. He wants to know who wins in a shoot fight, Brock Lesnar or Haku, or does it cause such a violent earthquake that the planet cracks in half?
I don't know how you call that. I don't know how you call any of this. I don't know how you call Harley versus Haku. I don't know how you call Jack Briscoe versus Brock. I don't know how you call any of this. Or Kurt versus anybody, or Kurt versus freaking Danny Hodge. I don't know how you call any of this. These are legendary tough guys. Good Lord, put Harley Race against Bart Gunn, see what happens. This is legendary. I think the earth cracks.
Instagram, a wrestling historian, brings up a great name. He says, what if you had won Brawl for All and had to box Butterbean instead? Thanks in advance. We haven't talked about Butterbean. Not really a wrestler, but kind of wrestling adjacent. Was Butterbean a badass?
Oh, was he? Oh my God. So before I fought Bart in the Brawl for All, they asked me, would you fight if you win, would you fight either? They had two choices, Tank Abbott or Butterbean. And I'm like, good Lord, I'm so glad I lost to Bart. At the time, I thought, man, if I can beat Bart, I can beat those guys. I didn't realize the difference between really tough guys and good fighters and really trained professional fighters. I talked to Butterbean after the fight with Bart. He's just the nicest guy. And he offered to work the fight, which Bruce has brought up before, because he couldn't believe he's going to be put out there with a fighter that wasn't trained as a professional. Butterbean told me after the fight, after WrestleMania, he said, I've had 100 pro fights. He said, this guy could knock out a freaking horse, but he wasn't ever going to touch me. He said, because I've had 100 professional fights. And I remember before the fight, Shamrock and I snuck over there and watched Butterbean warm up, and he's hitting these mitts. He's bam, 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 bam. And he's hitting them so hard and so fast. I'd never seen anybody hit mitts like that. And I looked at Kenny and I said, Bart's in trouble. And Kenny goes, yeah, big trouble. I'd never, and I saw Bart warming up, and, he hit it like you'd knock a freaking heavy bag off of the trellises and knock the whole roof down. But the way Butterbean was hitting, it was just different. It's what a pro did. It's what Bart would have been if he'd have been a trained pro fighter. And so, yeah, Butterbean to me, we asked first about what would have happened. Probably the same thing would have happened to Bart. I'm so glad it didn't. Oh my God. I had no idea. What I was getting into. Especially if I'd been fortunate enough, which obviously I didn't have the ability or the chin to take Bart's punch in the Brawl for All final to face up against Butterbean next. Butterbean made a huge name for himself. He was the 4-round king. If Butterbean had been around today with social media, he'd be like Jake Paul. He'd be knocking out everybody. There's guys not want to fight Butterbean. He was a good fighter, and he was also a good wrestler, which a lot of people didn't know. He would have been a great MMA fighter if that's what he had chose to do. It's just that at that time, guys didn't do that much MMA because there wasn't as much money in it.
So, John, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to narrow it down, we've named a lot of names, and we're going to get it down to the 5 biggest badasses in the history of pro wrestling. I won't say rank them in order, because I know that puts you in a bad spot. but give me the 5 toughest guys, and let's narrow it down to that you had firsthand experience with. So I know that we've read a lot and we've heard a lot about Gotch and others. But I'm saying in your firsthand experience, hey, I shared a locker room with this guy. I went up and down the roads with this guy. I was in the ring with this guy. These are the 5 most badass dudes I was in the ring with.
Okay, so that takes Harley out of the question because I was only around Harley, but never really in the dressing room with Harley that much. So it takes Harley out of the question. Takes Jack Briscoe out of the question because I was not around Jack except around his brother Jerry, and I wasn't around Jerry enough to as far as wrestling when he was in his prime. So I would start with Haku. Obviously, I think the one guy that around that I've heard so many stories of, been around Haku so much. We're good friends. I would start with Haku. I would go Brock Lesnar next. I think after that, I would stick in. I think I'd stick in Stan Hansen as who I'd pick. And then I'd go Godfather and Ron Simmons is who I'd go with.
All right, help me with the Godfather. Not arguing. Love me some Godfather. What makes Godfather make the list?
He's a bad dude, man. That guy can fight. I mean, he's a trained fighter, but he can fight. He's a legendary story of him throwing a guy off the balcony when he was in some biker gang or in college. Godfather that guy's legit, man. I mean, he's legendary stories. He's been in a lot of fights. He doesn't lose. I mean, that guy can go. He can throw hands, and he'll be there. And he's a stand-up dude. I mean, if I'm going into a bar fight, I won't Ron Simmons and Godfather with me. No doubt. I've seen Ron Simmons, and when I needed him, and he was there for me.
Can you tell us one of those stories when you needed him?
Yeah, we were in. I won't mention the town because I don't. But we were at a place, and me and Ron had gotten separated, and so I'll tell the story a lot. So anyway, I'll tell the story. So we got separated, and I hear these guys they're about to jump me, and they'd waiting for me and Ron to get separated. So when they did, the guy comes around, and I thought, you know what, I'm going down here. This is not good. And so we go to get in a fight with the first guy, and I caught him with a pretty good shot, and he goes down. When he does, all these knives come up, and they got me pinned against the wall, and I'm thinking, boy, this sucks. And so I'm sitting there thinking, you got to be kidding me. I'm going to get killed right here tonight in this bar. And I got all these knives. I mean, here comes Ron, and Ron's running toward me. Think about that. He's running toward me to help me, and all his knives are sticking at me. Right before he gets there, he grabs a bottle, and he steps right in front of me. And he cuts Conrad, the greatest promo to this day I've ever heard in my life. It was the greatest promo you ever heard, that James Earl Jones voice. And these guys are looking at him, and Ron's got that beer bottle. And finally, he ends the fight with, and I'm going to hit the first white motherfucker that moves. And I'm sitting there, and I had something to drink. And so I'm sitting there looking around, going, yeah. Then I started looking around. I thought, I'm the only white guy in here. And I thought, why would he hit me? And so I'm sitting there. I'm starting to think, but we've had a little bit to drink. So I'm sitting there starting to think, well, why would he hit me? And so I'm sitting there looking around, and finally Ron looks around and goes, not you. And so I said, oh, good. These guys looked at us like these are the two craziest people we've ever met in our life. They go, just get out of here. And so me and Ron got out of there.
My goodness. That'll do it for us today, boys and girls. We hope you enjoyed our maiden voyage here.
Hey, by the way, I want to throw this out there because I want to mention 2 other guys that don't get mentioned sometimes because they're new guys, but Bobby Lashley and Sheldon Benjamin. I want to throw those guys out.
Talk about that. So what makes, obviously we know their amateur status. I love their tag team work. I've been a big fan of what they've done in both WWE and AEW. I know it's not the same, but I think their amateur background, for whatever reason, I just kind of think of them as like the Steiner brothers of the modern era. I know they're not brothers, but you know what I mean. Just the ability to impose their will. Like at any time, if some real stuff breaks down in the ring,
I'll take those guys every day of the week. Both of them.
Have you seen them exhibit or have to show off or demonstrate what they're capable of in real life?
No, but I've wrestled with them, and you can tell by wrestling with a guy, how a guy is. You lock up with a guy and you can just tell, right away. You lock up with a guy like, say, a Ken Shamrock or Kurt Angle, and they're just different. I'm just telling you, they're just different. Brock Lesnar, they're just different. They just have this grip about them, this feel about them. This is like they used to call it a hard dude. It's not a BlueChew commercial. It's the old phrase hard dude. As they used to say from England. You can just tell it's just a hard guy. A tough man. You can tell by locking up with guys. And Bobby was like that. Bobby got his first title for me. Sheldon's like that. Sheldon was an All-American wrestler and an All-American 100-meter sprinter in the same year, and he was an All-American heavyweight wrestler. I mean, Sheldon may be the greatest athlete that ever came through WWE, which is a huge thing to say, I know. And Bobby is just, brother, Bobby's a double tough dude, man. Bobby's one of these guys that, man, he just freaking, you couldn't hurt him. You couldn't hurt him with a freaking bat, I don't think. He's just one of these tough guys. You just know it when you're out there with guys. Like, this dude's a tough guy. One time we had Ken Shamrock, and we're sitting there holding me and Ron, and Boss Man goes to hit him with that nightstick, and Boss Man busts his whole mouth open. I mean, taters the shit out of him. Blood goes everywhere, and you feel Ken start to swell up, and Ron goes, "That was Boss." Anyway, Ken started laughing.
My goodness, I could sit and talk to you forever about this topic. Maybe we'll do more in the future. Until next time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications bell. You don't want to miss us the next time we were live. And yes, we were live. We're just a few minutes away from 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern on August 25th. And you missed us if you're watching this on YouTube. Go hit that subscribe button, turn on that notifications bell. Don't miss us next time. And we'll see you next week right here on Something to Wrestle with John Layfield.